Between Us podcast, a place for Christian parents, family members, pastors, and counselors walking alongside a loved one who has embraced an LGBTQ identity. You love your child deeply, yet you may be wrestling with questions like, how do I hold on to my faith while loving my child unconditionally? Or what does grace and truth look like here? Am I the only one walking this journey? Hi, I'm your host, Melinda Patrick. The first thing you need to know is you're not alone. Each week at the Bridge Between Us podcast, we'll step into real conversations with parents, counselors, pastors, and those who have found freedom in Jesus Christ. Together, we'll explore how to stay rooted in God's truth while building a bridge of love, faith, and connection with your child. And y'all, today I am so excited to invite back onto the podcast. She's a returning guest. She's one of my in real life besties. We travel together, and goodness, Jen, we've done a whole lot of life together. And so, Jenn Hand, welcome back to the Bridge Between Us podcast.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. It's really tempting to just wish that I was in like a coffee shop with you having coffee. So this is second best, and also picturing your listeners who I've come to love because of your passion for them. And so it's just such an honor to be here to speak to them as well as just imagine them finding hope today. And so I am honored.
I brought you back on the show today because you have a book launching. And the day that this podcast goes out into the world, your book will have a launch the day before. So your book is actually launching on September 16th. Tell us about your book. I'm so excited to get this into the hands of my listeners.
This is a book that's been some blood, sweat, and tears,
Amen
right?
to that.
I mean, every book is, but this one, I have lived the message. And so I am so passionate about getting it into whoever can find these words of healing. It's called Hope Beneath the Rubble, Healing After Trauma. And it is written for anyone who has experienced something that is either earth shaking in a moment or a series of the ground just rumbling, and you find yourself like, how do I unbury from what feels like rubble of this trauma, whatever it may be? Whether trauma is anytime you feel unsafe spiritually, relationally, physically. Sometimes we don't think of that in that term, but I want to invite your listeners to understand that I think sometimes we just need to acknowledge first, like, I need some hope because I am walking through trauma. So I'm really excited for this book to be a tool for people to find those baby steps of healing.
Some of us think that what we're walking through as parents may not be considered trauma. But with my and the definition that you just gave for trauma, that's our reality right now. And I love what you said just a moment ago, how it may not be a one-time event, it may be a series where you continually feel the ground rumbling beneath you. For parents on this journey, that's what it is. Many times it's a rumbling under the ground. It's okay, I don't know when the next shoe is going to drop, or I don't know the next hard conversation I'm going to have, or the next reality that does not meet my expectations,
Mhm.
when I'm going to have to meet that reality. Walk us through your book.
So it was developed because I've had the honor of standing on the holy ground of suffering with people. I have my master's in counseling, and which, Melinda, let's just be real. I'm a 7 on the Enneagram. Like, it's just God that He has me doing that because I want to talk about happy things. And yet He has called me again and again and again to stand with people and stand on the holy ground of their suffering. And that's taken me around the world. This book came out of literally an earthquake in Turkey where I was seeing people buried and unburying bodies and rubble. And the thing that I ask continually of people I met that had literally been buried under concrete, under rubble, was, how did you survive? And over and over and over, they would say, we had to hold hope. So, what I begin to realize is when we can hold on to hope, then we can begin to answer the questions that come when our earth has shaken, whether it's a circumstance, a relationship, your parents right now that are just trying to find that steady ground after everything blowing up in a moment or continuing to be an ongoing deep hurt. Where do you find the answer to the questions? Because what people are asking all over the world whenever a trauma happens is, will I ever be normal again? And then they move to what is normal about what I'm feeling. And then finally, they're asking, what is my new normal? So this book, Hope Beneath the Rubble, walks you alongside that journey of finding, okay, um, where is my hope? Can I rebuild? How do I do that if the circumstances don't change? How do I find my new normal in the middle of all that? And so it begins and ends with hope so that you know, even as you're walking through what feels like everything has shaken, that you can hold on to hope.
Hmm. I love those questions, and it made me think of a few other questions that I have actually thought in my own life with many different seasons of trauma that I've walked through is, will I ever feel joy again?
Mm,
And will I ever laugh? And then I think a big one for me that has been, is it okay to laugh? Is
mm,
it okay in the midst when everything feels like it's falling around me? Is it okay to just relax or release or rest in that moment of okay, I'm going to trust God just for this moment. I'm going to allow myself to laugh. Is that okay? When we're able to do that, it gives us the moment to come up and catch our breath again.
yes, and Melinda, as you know me, I just
We
love
love to laugh.
I love fun. I love to laugh. I love adventure. I love joy. And so, honestly, when God told me to write this book, I'm like, oh, I want to talk about something else. But the truth is, I needed this book. And I learned what does it mean to hold hope and suffering at the same time? And how do you wrestle with God in that? And how do you do that when the circumstance is or isn't changing? And how do you let it change you without it changing you to be bitter or just stuck. And so I'm going to be honest, I believe God gifted me with a way of talking about trauma with joy at the same time. And so I really feel excited for people to hold that together. Like I made the book yellow, bright yellow, because I wanted people to see there can be sunshine after and during. And because of the rain. You can find new growth, new life out of the rubble. The picture on the book cover is some green leaves coming up out of the rubble because I have seen in my own life and I've seen around the world lives that as you begin the hard journey of rebuilding after trauma, unburying yourself from the rubble, when you do the baby steps of healing, you do heal. And it just may not be as fast as you want or in the journey that you want, but God does show up and he does show out.
What can we expect from your book?
So I go through the acrostic rubble, which because, like I said, for me, I was in Turkey. I'm seeing, and I've traveled. I don't know if I follow natural disasters or they follow me, Melinda, but it could be both. But I have traveled to all kinds of disasters. But this particular time, I'm in Turkey, watching people unbury themselves, their lives, and then they had a second earthquake. So I myself was in the earthquake. And I came home not okay. And it was scary, it was terrifying, it was life altering. And I had to begin to practice what I had learned and been teaching other people about trauma. And so this book is a culmination of all of that. So it does the acrostic rubble. So it starts with rebuilding is possible. It
Hmm.
is. But to do that, you can need to understand trauma and its effects, and then look at the brain, how trauma impacts the brain, how God made our brain. Look at the body, how God could use our brain and our body to, for example, we get stuck in, well, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, which is triggered when we're going through something hard or stressful or traumatic. These things can serve us. Like it's good. Sometimes we need to have those emergency responses in the moment. And I know, you've spoken often of you when your daughter came out of the closet, you went into the closet. You said you kind of froze. That can serve you, but now all these years later, if you stay stuck there, it's no longer serving you, it's harming you. So we talk about in the book, okay, how do you understand your brain, your body? How do you lean into others? And then it's bookend with you can experience hope. So it starts with
Mm.
rebuilding as possible. It ends with experiencing hope. And in the middle, just really tiny steps at a time. Like it's very practical of how you can move forward in healing. Even in the middle, because I know most of your listeners right now are like, hey, this wasn't just a tornado that struck and then left and I rebuild. This is still striking today.
When I envision a earthquake and you're talking about finding hope in the rubble, I see two different people. I see those that are caught up underneath, that are
Mhm.
longing for someone to rescue them, longing for is somebody searching for me? Is there anyone out
Mhm.
there that has not forgotten about me? And then I also see the one that is out there doing the searching.
Mhm.
That's traumatic as well. Texas, where they had the floods a couple months ago,
Yeah. Mhm.
and they just recovered the last little girl. And the one who found her, he was so distraught.
Mhm.
And so a trauma not only impacts the one that is walking through it, it also impacts the one that is walking sometimes with someone in the trauma.
Yes.
What, how can we give us some hope there as well?
I think the same steps of hope. The first thing is whether you're the person walking through the trauma or watching the trauma, both, you have to give yourself permission to acknowledge and notice this is hard. And sometimes we want to numb our way out of pretending it's not. Sometimes we want to do those fight, flight, freeze, or fawn and think, okay, I'm gonna run and pretend this isn't happening. Um, if you will become a noticer without shame, that's the key piece, is
Mm.
just notice, hey, I need hope here and acknowledge I am experiencing trauma. Then that begins the steps to healing. So it's really the same and I think we tend to compare traumas too, so that we undermine ours. Like, oh, my trauma isn't as bad as my neighbors who watched this. Or we could be going through the same exact trauma. Maybe it's two parents right now listening who are going through the same story and being impacted completely different. So I would
Mm.
encourage you to not judge how your response versus someone else's. Don't try to outpace someone else or go faster than your own race of healing. Everyone's
Mm.
timing is different. And the main thing is notice what is happening in your mind, soul, body, and spirit. The more you notice, the more you have tools and the more you let hope in and the Lord in, like wrestling with Him, even. So I would say, really, the number one key is to just begin to surrender, acknowledge, and notice.
I love that. And those are simple things like you just told me what I need to do right now. I need to notice. So you mentioned about the body and the brain. You actually mentioned about the brain and the body. This year, I've been learning some crazy things that happen to our brain when we go through trauma. So let's talk about the body just a little bit. What are some signs that we can look towards or look to that would maybe cause us to think, okay, this is a red flag for me?
Yeah, so there is a book called The Body Keeps the Score. It's a really good book. It's pretty counselor language, so I'll just sum it up for you. The body keeps the score. Like you really don't have to read the book to know. You will experience trauma in your body somewhere, and I think it's beginning to notice that. In your shoulders, knots, stomach pain. Um, I experienced a trauma this summer, and I'm gonna say that for months later, when I hear that person's voice, my hands will shake uncontrollably for about an hour. my body responds that way, and I can't do anything to stop it. And before, I would have honestly thought I was going crazy, but now I'm like, that's just my body's response to trauma. And so what you do is, oh, I have a lot happening. I need to go on a walk, or I need to pause. It sounds very hokey, and I'm gonna be honest, I used to think these things even when I was studying them in counseling class. I'm like, it really can't work. Breathing, I mean, we do it. It can't. But for example, I was in a car accident where I almost died, and then I was having flashbacks driving, and I had to really do the things where, okay, I'm having a flashback. I need to look at my five senses right now and do something to get out of the anxiety and into the present moment. So I would have to open the window. I'd have to eat sour candy. You need to use your five senses. So if you start to notice in your body, like, oh, I'm shaky, or it's just triggered by something, or maybe a news article or a call from a family member, notice what your body is doing and then get that energy. I don't like that term because, it's kind of used weirdly, but I mean it in not the weird sort of way. But get that out. Like, go on a walk, do some sort of exercise that you love, breathe, like, close your eyes, inhale for a count of 4 or 5, hold it, and then let it go. And this can help take you out of that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode so that you're not stuck. So begin to notice your body. Like, maybe you're really having stomach issues, sleep issues. All of these things are not just physical, they can be tied to what our emotions are feeling.
Mm-hmm. And I've noticed this. I would love for your input and your thought on this too, that our brain, when I have walked through seasons of deep grief or trauma, I didn't realize this at the beginning, but now hindsight, I'm learning. I questioned why I couldn't read the Bible. I questioned why I couldn't know. Like, what do you mean? I cannot figure out how to pray today. Simple things like that. It took everything I had to do, but I'm learning that there's something called grief brain.
Mhm.
And it causes us to have a hard time focusing or to reading the Bible and actually understanding what we're reading. Walk us through that just a little bit.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons I spend a couple of chapters on making sure people know the effects of trauma is so that you can really work yourself into tizzy is to, what's wrong with me? Why can I not focus? Why do I not feel like the same person? And so it is very normal after a trauma or a grief to be forgetful, to, be like, why did I put my keys in the refrigerator? To be walking through a fog. That is a very normal, not only an immediate effect of trauma, but it can be delayed, like months or even years. Because sometimes there may be a listener here who is just dealing with their grief or their trauma years later. So I want to give you freedom to know if you're feeling that brain fog or that I can't even find words, or why do I feel so exhausted, or why is my thoughts all jumbled. This is a very natural response, which is why in the book I give all these baby tiny things that you can do to begin to feel a sense of control again. Because when you've gone through grief or trauma, not we don't have control ultimately, the Lord does, which aren't we glad? But it is important to feel like you regained a sense of not being controlled by your circumstance, but oh, I am struggling right now, and here's some things I can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one thing that I share often too is we tend to look at the things we can't do. And when we look at the things we can't do, we feel powerless, we feel hopeless, we feel like our hands are tied behind our back. And if we can just figure out one positive step to take, then that helps us to regain clarity just, for the moment and feel like, okay, even though I feel like my world is crashing and spinning around me, I am in control of this one thing. I can get up and do this one thing. And so, one thing I tell parents often to do is just sit and recall, maybe even write down how the Lord has been faithful in your own life.
Mhm.
It gives them a physical thing that they can do, and it also causes them to remember the faithfulness of God. And that same God who is faithful with us will be faithful with our loved ones.
Yes. And in the Bible, there's so many examples of also people wrestling with God. And so giving yourself permission. I'm just reading the story of Jacob and how he literally wrestled with God in a dream, or he woke up with his hip socket out of place, you know. But in the process of that wrestling, God changed his name from someone who cheats to become Israel, the father of the nation of God's people, you know. And so just encouragement along your journey to know you can wrestle with God, and that it's actually important to do those wrestlings in prayer and to pour out your hearts. And in the book, I have lots of actual exercises to help you if you don't know what to pray, or to help you if you're like, okay, what's the next baby step I can do because I can't even think.
Mm. So, for a parent today or anyone today who is listening in, what would be one simple act that they could do, like right now in the moment, that would just give them the opportunity to come up for air?
So I would encourage you to make a self-care plan. And I know that sounds selfish, but what are some things that make you feel safe? And some simple, tiny things that don't require a lot of money, or like, yeah, we would all love to get away and go to the beach, you know, but we can't do that. I mean, always. So, and then start there. What makes you feel safe? What makes you feel connected to God? Kind of make a list, and then do one of those things today. So,
Mm.
I love to go on a walk, but there's a difference between going on a walk because I'm trying to get skinny and going on a walk because I'm enjoying nature and breathing and, you know, allowing my body to heal. And so maybe that's something your listener needs to do, but make a self-care plan. Like, okay, what sounds like it will help me feel one more little bit of safety? And then
Mm.
also thinking about a time when you did feel safe with the Lord, with your life. Is there a place that you can envision? And maybe in your prayer time, just closing your eyes and simply asking the Holy Spirit to take you to that place with Him. And so then you can regain a sense. It's all really about trying to regain a sense of safety. Um, and although your listeners may not be in actual physical danger, emotional fallout from hard things can feel just and be as impactful as a physical danger.
One thing that has been really helpful for me, if I'm not able to get outside, is to just go to my favorite chair, get in a quiet place, maybe a favorite blanket or something, and just light a candle
Hmm.
and just say, okay, God, I'm inviting you into this place, and I just want you to sit with me in this moment. And it sounds a little maybe cheesy, but there's something about lighting that candle that is not only causing me to like enjoy the glow of it, but it's almost like a physical invitation I'm sending to the Lord. Like,
Yes.
I am lighting this candle, I am preparing this place, and I want to just sit with you.
And that's not cheesy at all. And the thing is, God gave us our five senses. So when you can use your five senses, we, when we struggle with anxiety and worry, it's always either future oriented or past oriented. It is not in the present moment. When you can give
Oh.
yourself right to the present moment and note what's around you and really be in the moment, it can take you out of anxiety. Now, it may only take you out for as long as you're in that present moment, but it there's something like even just making a grounding box, they call it in the counseling world, but that has a few things like that candle, like that lighter, your favorite coffee mug. I have iced coffee right now, you know, because I can feel the cold on my hands. Whatever it is for you, having that place, that thing readily available is just a really cool, comforting way to, okay, this is a baby step of hope, and I'm going to take it. And it's one baby step after another of hope that leads to healing and
Mm,
unbearing of the rubble.
mm, hmm. And right now, in this moment, I am safe. I can invite Jesus into this, and right now he's with me.
And that can be, for example, say your listener is knowing they're going to have a hard conversation with their child or go to a family event that's going to be hard. Having something that they can even tuck away in their hands like a smooth rock to just rub with your hands, a literal tactile thing, or your favorite strong candy to have in your mouth, something to remind you to ground in the moment when everything else may feel unsafe. Is just a really amazing tool in the way God made our brains and bodies to work together. Because what it's doing is it's sending a signal from your brain, from the part of your brain that's saying, oh, we need to be on heightened alert, and it is calming it down so that you're not in that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn mode.
And when we're not in that mode, we're better able to think and
Because once we go into that mode, our cortisol levels are high. You don't have to know all the brain terms, but all you need to know is you're not thinking clearly because it's a different part of your brain. And so if you can do little tiny things, and I used to think there's no way this could work, Melinda. I did. And I've had to use the tools for myself, and I'm like, oh, it does. This is amazing.
yeah. Yeah, it in fact it makes me want to, when we're done with this, go find a little candle and light it and
Mhm.
just sit there in the quietness of the Lord. And I know sometimes that can be fearful for people because we don't know what God's going to say, but God is a God who loves us. He cares for us. He cares what we're walking through. We're important to him. The things around us are important to him, and we can trust God's goodness for us in whatever season we're in. I
Mhm.
love the quote Elizabeth Elliot shares. Her husband was Jim Elliot, who was one of the missionaries that was killed. I think it was back in the 70s. Don't quote me. I might be wrong on that. I need to look that up. But one of her quotes is that, and I don't have this quote word for word either, but go with me here. One of her quotes is, I always imagine the day of Jim's death as being the worst day ever. But in that imagining, I never imagined the grace of Jesus Christ.
Mm.
And so, as I'm thinking about, maybe there's some parents listening today that know that maybe next week they're going to have a hard conversation, or they're going to have to meet a partner, or they're going to be faced with another reality. I would love to leave the hope of, in your imagining, don't forget to put Jesus there with you.
Mhm.
We often think of that time, that scenario that's coming up, and we forget, wait a minute, I'm not the only one showing up. I'm not showing up by myself. I'm going to have the presence of the Lord with me and the power of the Holy Spirit enabling and equipping me.
Mhm.
That has helped me a whole lot.
I love that, and it brings to mind a amazing thing that when I was in Turkey, which is not a country where there are, many believers, and I am meeting with people and hearing stories of people that didn't know Jesus that are buried under this rubble for days. Can you imagine being buried alive for days? And over and over, I heard stories of people telling me that they're talking about being in the rubble, and they're like, a man named Jesus came and sat with me in the rubble.
Wow.
And I'm like, this isn't the book of Acts. This is now. Like, he can do that. He can come, and you may not physically see him, but he can come and give you the hope that someone is coming for you, and that was actually him. And someone does see you, and that is him. And someone will rescue you and your child. And it may not be in the time or the way that you plan or expect. And there may be rubble that you have to be rescued out from under, but there is a hope that he is and will and does come for you. And I love Psalm 18, which says he rescues us because he delights in us. Sorry, I
Yes.
got preachy there, Melinda.
Go
I got
for it. Go
excited.
for it. I love that. And it's true. He does here. And I love Psalm 18 as well. When we walk through the verses individually in Psalm 18, we see that we have a God who is a listening father. He's a fighting father. Psalm 118 says, I cried to the Lord and he heard my voice. My cry came before him and into his ears. The earth trembled and quaked and the foundations of the mountains shook because he was angry. And then David paints this picture of God leaving heaven, like coming down on the clouds in this cherubim, sending forth the lightning, rerouting the enemies, and drawing us out of deep waters because he rescues us, because he delights in us.
Mhm.
And that is our Father. That is our Father. That's the God that created us. That's the God that loves us and is rescuing us. And that is God, the same God who is on mission to rescue and to minister to every single loved one that we're praying for, that's represented here today in this whole audience of listeners. God is not a passive God. He is a very active God, and he is a God who's on mission.
And he's not just on mission for your loved one, he's on mission for you too.
Amen. Amen. So, Jenn, how can my listeners find you, and where can they purchase your book?
Wow, I love it. Well, if you want, you can go to learn more about the book and to read a sample chapter, you can go to hopebeneath-the-rubble.com. So you can go there, and that gives a sample chapter, tells you where to buy the book. It's really available anywhere books are sold. But you can also connect with me at jenniferhand.org. So either one of those places.
Yep. Okay. Well, as we leave today, is there just anything bubbling up that you're like, okay, I really want to say this?
I just want to remind you that rebuilding is possible and that you will find your new normal along the way, even when it feels like, how will I ever be normal again? And even if you are in the middle of the fire right now, and it's not a one-time event, but it's an ongoing event, rebuilding is possible. And I have seen it again and again and again and again. And the stable foundation that will not change is that you have a God who sees you, who knows you, and loves you.
What a way to end the episode today, Jenn. Thank you so, so much for joining us today. And friends, I really want to encourage you, check out the show notes. I'm going to have every way to connect with Jenn Hand. You can also follow her on social media. I'm not on social media much, but Jenn is, and she's a delight to follow. She'll have you laughing. I just love you, girl. But anyway, I will end this, and I am going to say this reminder because I need it. I say this every week because I need this as well. And it's a reminder that God has entrusted this journey to us. And as we engage with him, he will be faithful to equip us for each next step. Okay, friends, I'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Bridge Between Us podcast with Melinda Patrick. To find out more, go to melindapatrick.org. Once you're there, you can check out the many resources that Melinda has available. Also, you can book Melinda for your next speaking engagement. Just click on the speaking tab at the top of the page for more information. All of this can be found at melindapatrick.org. Thank you for listening in today. Be sure to join us next time for another episode of The Bridge Between Us with Melinda Patrick. In The Daring Rescue, a new book from Melinda Patrick, parents learn how to join Jesus Christ in his pursuit of your LGBTQ identifying child's heart. In 2011, Melinda was faced with her own daughter embracing that lifestyle, so she is all too familiar with the struggle parents can face when confronted by their own children who identify with this compromising community. Through The Daring Rescue, parents will regain hope and will be encouraged to still love well while holding on to God's eternal truth. Even though culture can be shifting and affecting children of Christian parents, this book will equip and embolden moms and dads to be a vessel through which Jesus Christ can minister to their LGBTQ identifying child. The Daring Rescue is a must-read because we are in a war, and the lives of our children and future generations are at stake. The Daring Rescue by Melinda Patrick, available now.